Italian Football Podcast.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Italian Football Podcast, the official podcast of Football Italia. I'm Carlo Garganese, joined as always by Nima Tavali. On today's show, a lot to talk about. We'll review the weekend Serie A action, the penultimate weekend of Serie A. We will though start off with Max Allegri's sacking. Bologna and Juventus played out a 6-goal thriller on Monday evening. Atalanta bounced back from their Coppa Italia final defeat to Juventus by qualifying for the Champions League. We'll preview their Europa League final against Bayer Leverkusen. Roma have clinched 6th place and they now need Atalanta to do them a big favour if they are to qualify for the Champions League themselves. Lazio spoiled Inter's Scudetto party, which Nima was at, but Inter's ownership chaos is all that anyone is talking about. We'll get Nima to do a little explainer about what's happening there with Suning and Oaktree and everything. Napoli's winless run continues at Fiorentina. Milan's coaching chase hots up as they can't wait now for the season to end, losing to Torino. And the relegation race, Sassuolo have been relegated, while there are 3 teams at risk of becoming the last team to drop down to Serie B on the final day of the season this coming weekend. We'll also have our usual Baggio, Premface and Serie Ass of the week. For all our first-time listeners, this is our free weekly episode that we do usually every Monday. Today we're doing it on Tuesday, reviewing the weekend Serie A action and all the biggest talking points in Italian football. If you want to support the Italian Football Podcast and receive all of our content that we do throughout the week, including a weekly Q&A episode, usually every Tuesday, this week probably Wednesday, where we answer all the questions from our patrons, plus the weekly Thursday midweek review show, plus interviews, post-match reaction, and much, much more, then go to patreon.com/TIFP and become a subscriber for just $2.99 a month plus VAT. And you can also sign up to be a paid subscriber now on Spotify. We'll provide the link in the description. It's the same price and same terms. And for all of you who do listen on Spotify, Apple, and iTunes podcasts, we'd really appreciate if you give us a 5-star rating, give us a follow and a like. We're on a YouTube as well, so subscribe there, and that all helps us to really grow and do more content for you guys. Okay, so let's get into today's show. Okay, so before we discuss Juventus versus Bologna, which was a thrilling match, just a little discussion on Max Allegri, because he was sacked on Friday while Nima was on his way to Milan. So Nima hasn't had his chance to have his say on this. I did do, though, a short snap reaction on my phone on Friday evening, where I gave some just some initial thoughts really to this. But I mean, it's moved on since then now. But I mean, at the time, I think there were 2 big talking points. I just want to get your viewpoint on that. Number one was the way that it was handled by Juventus. Even the most Allegri out of people ranged from saying this wasn't the way to do things to it should have been done in a different way. So I want to get first of all, what's your viewpoint on that? And secondly, where do you see this going from now? It's going to get really ugly, isn't it, Nima?
It's going to get very ugly because, like I said last week, on Thursday after the Coppa Italia final, I said, look, you have to remember that Max Allegri is Andrea Agnelli's one of his best friends. They're very close. They, the legendary, morning runs and breakfasts they had for all the years that Agnelli was in charge of Juve. We know that there is hardly any love lost between the Elkan wing and the Agnelli wing of the family. So it's, he doesn't really risk anything because his loyalty lies with Andrea Agnelli. So there's that aspect of it as well. But it would be ridiculous and incredibly disingenuous to sit here and pretend that this was not this was well handled by Juve, and the way that Giuntoli decides to take, one of the first major decisions that he decides to take is to go to war with Max Allegri. We're talking about someone who has won 5 Scudetti, 5 Coppa Italia, 3 Supercoppa, 2 Champions League finals. That makes Allegri by definition a Juventus legendary coach. And that he decides to go like this and starts talking about certain behaviors in that ridiculous statement. Certain behaviors are not acceptable. It's just, on the one hand, it is very typical Juve, because at Juve, if they kick out Alessandro Del Piero, they can unceremoniously kick out Max Allegri. At Juve is the most important thing, and by that, it's this kind of il padrone c'è, this thing where I always talk about
I think it was,
how in Italy, psychologically, Italy is still a feudal country. It's still a feudalistic country. And that is something that we saw an example of again, but at the same time, it's very, very, it should never have come to this. It should never have become this infected. And the fact that it became this infected, that it became this toxic, is also on Juve. They are a club that usually doesn't allow for these things to happen. These things happen elsewhere, but not at Juve. But it did happen, and the fact that it did happen and that he exploded the way that he did, that it was at the same time, it's Allegri. You have to respect him, and he was not respected. This was someone who was constantly for 3 years unprotected at Juve, which is very, very unlikely, which is very, very not typical of Juve. They're very good at controlling the narrative. And the fact that, again, the Tuttosport director, the head boss at Tuttosport, which is essentially Juve's paper, fanzine, came out and on the record and said all these things that he did, he would never have done that if Juve had not given the green light. And the fact that they gave the green light speaks volumes. And I think he was incredibly unworthy of Allegri and his tenure at Juve. I think Juve kind of crossed the line here. This Juve crossed the line here that I don't think can be unwashed, or it's a spot that will not out. And I think for as long as the Elkan and Giuntoli era persists, this is something that will come back to hurt them politically, definitely, because Allegri is extremely well liked in Italian football. He has very, very many, very, very powerful friends, not just in the media, but in Italian football. And this was not how they wanted it to end. What they wanted was for him to parade around in the last home game at the Aviva Stadium and say his goodbye to the fans. They wanted a worthy exit. They did not want this.
Yeah, I agree with quite a lot of that. I think it was very cold the way that they did it, and to deny him a kind of a goodbye as well, I think is bad. The only thing I can think of is maybe after everything that happened on the after the Coppa Italia final, forget the stuff with the Tuttosport director. I don't think that really played much into it, to be honest with you. I think what Juventus didn't like was, and we've had it confirmed now, that he went against Giuntoli on the pitch, told him to go away. That's been confirmed now. So there's clearly, we know that that relationship was there was no relationship by the end, and that they don't like each other. Whether they saw that there was going to be more of this in the last 2 weeks of the season, and it was just going to
that was not going to happen,
and it was going to become a circus.
No, that was not going to happen. That was a burst, spur of the moment thing by him and Hugh, because it was raw human emotion. There was nothing planned about that. That was completely him just being overwhelmed by that and basically, saying, damn you all. But
if that's the case, then I think it's cold. But we don't know that.
But look, you can't do that at Juve. At the same time, you can't do that at Juve.
I'm not condoning what he did. Obviously, what he did. I don't think anyone's condoning what he did. No. That was wrong. But but that does happen.
But for me, But for me, the thing I look at it is, I think the mistake happened earlier. I go to the root of the issue, and the root of the issue is that ever since Giuntoli took over, he's been alone. Allegri. He's not been protected. I mean, you can't really blame anyone
Well, I
after
don't know if I agree with that.
after the previous
I don't know if I agree with that because publicly,
after the let me just finish. I'm not talking about publicly. I'm talking about how Juve operates. Juve operates like the mafia. They protect everyone who works at Juve, whether they like them or not. That's just how Juve has always worked. But since Giuntoli took over, I'm not talking about the interim period before when the previous board resigned in disgrace after a SWAT team burst in. No, because that was unheard of. I'm talking about from the minute that Giuntoli came in, the way it was evident that Giuntoli was going to get rid of Allegri. He was a dead man walking. Throughout all of this, all the rumors about him extending Allegri was nonsense, and I said so on the spot at the time. There's no chance of that happening, and that in it of itself is not how it works at Juve. When you work there as the head coach, from the minute you're there to the very end, you are protected, and he wasn't. He was not protected by the
I
club.
disagree about the protection thing completely.
He was not protected by the club.
I disagree with that. I think if you look at the media, he was very protected, very protected. Even by Tuttosport, the criticism against Allegri in the Italian media was virtually non-existent, considering Juventus have set negative record after negative record.
No, there was. It was not non-existent. It was very.
It wasn't. I'm sorry. I completely disagree with that. Even Tuttosport a little bit, but I'm sorry. It was, until recently, where it's become impossible not to criticise Allegri because of the results. For most of these 3 years, and even since Giuntoli come, he's been so protected, and that's something that's been alluded to. I mean, I hate to use Antonio Cassano as an example. That's one of the only things Cassano has ever said. You said yourself, Allegri has lots of friends within the media.
He has lots of friends in the media. He doesn't get criticised.
Even in the press conferences with journalists, he never ever has been asked the questions that he should have been asked during these 3 years about the most basic of things, like why do you not create any chances? Why is the attack so bad? Why do players not? He never gets asked these questions. He's been very protected in the media.
I know. Publicly, there are different. There are different ways.
Let me finish. Publicly, Giuntoli has always defended. What happens behind closed doors is another matter. Yes, behind closed doors, he's obviously not.
That's just not true, Carlo. Though, because I've seen how Italian media have covered you. Where there's different ways of going. You can do fare polemica to his face and throw shit at him. But I have watched how Ravanelli, how Del Piero, how all of these Juve icons have sat in Sport Mediaset and Sky Sport ever since Giuntoli took over and have ripped shred by shred Juventus under Allegri for how they play in the pitch. That would never happen if he was protected by the club. It would never exist in a million years that Juventus icons would go out on TV and talk about how abysmal
I don't think Ravanelli and Del Piero have ever.
I have watched them week after week after week talk about how poor Juve play, how poor they are. That's not an opinion. That is an empirical fact. There are different ways that you can criticize people.
Well, of course you can. Of course they're going to say that they're not playing well because you
Not
can't
playing well.
Ripping Allegri to shreds.
Not Allegri. Again, listen to what I'm saying, the nuances in what I'm saying. In Italy, things sometimes, how you say and what you say, but also what you do not say is just as important. They never criticized him by name. They never went against him when he was there doing interviews. But what they did do was rip Juventus, how they played under Allegri, especially since Giuntoli took over, limb by limb. Okay? That, to me, is very extraordinary, and that is what has pissed him off. That would never have happened if in a normal situation. It would never have happened. Never have happened.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I disagree with that. I don't think that's
the football politics of Italian football dictate, especially at a club like
I don't think that happened. I don't think that happened at all.
I know it happened.
I don't think it happened at all, and I think it's the other way around. But what I agree with is I think he feels within the club that they haven't been open and honest with him, and that's what's come out in the last few days as well. That he feels that they weren't open. They've been saying, in fact, that's actually said that they've said publicly that they backed him, like Giuntoli, what he said, that he's our coach, blah blah blah. Giuntoli even said a few months ago they were planning for the future with him publicly, but privately he's been given no assurances over his future. But that's just natural. I mean, of course it's natural. I mean, It's obvious. It's
It
obvious they're not
was
good. It's
obvious since
obvious from the
Giuntoli
day
took
Giuntoli took
over.
over that these
Yeah.
two people are completely different people. Giuntoli and Allegri work in completely different ways. We've seen that.
Yeah, that's fair
Their
enough.
visions of football are different. So I mean, that's to be expected, and this is what happens whenever a
But
club
that's
wants to
not.
go in
But
a
you see,
different direction.
that's not
There's
what
nothing
happened.
unusual with that
No,
at
no. But
all.
this what's unusual again. If you do not have at Juve that kind of thing where throughout, historically, you have them maybe criticized for one game, you have them criticized of today was not, they had a difficult game, but you do not have former club legends at that club come out and say that Juve are playing today, played incredibly poor, they didn't do this, they didn't do that, and then when Allegri comes on, they don't ask him about it. Like, this is so demonstratively where they are showing respect to the club, but they are not, but they're making their points to him. He was not critically attacked by. That's not what I'm saying. Listen again to the nuance that I'm making. I'm saying the way that Juve are criticized is different to the way that the other clubs are. And when you, historically in Italy, and when you have club icons at these big TV stations talk about Juve the way that they have since Giuntoli took over, when the results have been bad, that has never happened before. Not in this way. And the fact that is part of the things that he's pissed off about, that he feels he's not been protected at Juve. That's not how it works. And that he is 100% right in. Now, the way that he handled that post Coppa Italia, where he threatened to rip off people's ears and punch them in the face and you effing a-hole, you go away. And that's not how you handle it. But the frustration was there, and it was built up through this entire year since Giuntoli took over, because Giuntoli made it absolutely clear from day one he was not going to continue with Allegri. He was not going to protect him. And I said so at the time, that I don't care what they talk about planning with the future. I don't care what he says publicly. I don't believe that he will continue past this season. And I think it was obvious. And that's what happened. And that, to me, is where the mistake or the abnormal behavior, quote unquote,
I think what
occurred.
Juventus have done wrong is they should have just let him see out the season, and they should have given him the chance to at least parade the trophy and say goodbye to the ultras, for example, who absolutely worship his feet. Not that the ultras deserve anything, because I despise them, but at least give him the chance to go out with some dignity, whatever you think of him. And that's coming from
But it's
me.
not him going out with
It's,
dignity. It's a little bit like, it's also the optics of it. Like, you would end the
yeah,
season on a
everything.
positive note.
Yes, everything. I agree. I agree with you. That is where I think that Juventus, and I think you said that Allegri acted hastily. I think maybe Juventus acted hastily as well. Why do they have to act so soon? Like, it was already clear. I knew by
They
Thursday
had to
morning.
do that.
I
They
knew by
had to do
Thursday
that.
morning he
Their
was going to get
hands were
sacked.
forced. Yeah, but their hands were forced. I mean, when he publicly, the way that he goes against the club directors and that way that he did and told people to
Well,
F
and
off
that's
and do
what I
this
think
and
was
do
the
that.
key thing. That's what
You can't do that at
I don't think it was
Juve.
the
You can't
tutor
do that
sport.
at Juve.
I don't think it was the tutor sport thing. I think it was the directors. It was going
No, I
against
don't think
the
it was the
directors.
Tutto Sport thing, and I didn't say
Yeah.
that it was the Tutto Sport thing. I used
No,
that
no.
as an example of showing that the fact that it was leaked was because Juventus wanted it to be leaked.
Oh,
If
yeah.
Juventus did not want it to be leaked, nobody would have found out about it. Not in the way that the actual director goes out and writes it and says it publicly. This happened. He told me
Yeah.
this.
Having said that, though, I have to give the other side is and I've said it, while I think Juventus should have done this differently, and he should have been able to finish the season. I do also think that Allegri, he can't complain too much, because, as I said on my post match pod, he's very, very lucky to have still been Juventus coach now. If it was any other coach, he would have been sacked long ago. And so for him to get to this stage, and then feel bitter about not getting another season, or bitter for getting sacked. Yes, the way that it happened was wrong. Was it should have been done in a different way. But he's lucky to have got here. Anyway, so the first Juventus game after Allegri is sacked is against Bologna, which was actually a big game for the race for third place in the league. Paulo Montero filled in as interim coach, as he will for the final game of the season against Monza as well. And this was an absolutely insane game, insane ending, insane comeback. Juventus 3-0 down, completely outplayed for 75 minutes, abysmal performance for 75 minutes, and then just come back in the last 50 minutes and score 3 goals, almost win it as well, to almost win it 4-3. This was, first of all, unbelievable match. Unbelievable match to watch. And the comeback at the end, Chiesa scoring, Milik scoring, Yildiz coming on and scoring, Paulo Montero subs working, 3 goals in 7 minutes. But before that, Nima, the first 75 minutes were horrendous.
They looked shell shocked, but then Bologna kind of. It feels like I really can't take these games too seriously, because they really did feel like these games just felt like it was a kickabout. Like there was no structure. Season's over. Juve's season ended against in the Coppa Italia final. They're in the Champions League. They don't really care. It was walkabout. Bologna were fire. They were happy, and because they made the Champions League and they were having a party in the stadium, and they played really well. And then Juve for 15 minutes decided to make it respectable, because losing 3-0 away to Bologna is never respectable. And I don't know. I can't really. There's not really too much to take away. I mean, what would have been interesting is if Thiago Motta had played against Allegri, but after what happened midweek, that was killed. So there's not really that much to take. It was an entertaining game, for end of season game for fans to watch, but I can't really analyze it more than that, because
Yeah,
there
I
was no
think
structure.
until the
There was
last
nothing there.
15 minutes, Juventus looked like their mind just wasn't on the game at all. And then
Yeah.
obviously the sacking and the chaos probably played a part in that. And players just weren't even, I mean, they were walking around the pitch at some point during
Well,
the
that's what I
first
mean.
half.
It was a kickabout
It
with your
was,
mates. Like it was,
yeah.
it was lads in the park having a kickabout with a ball. Like that's the
Mm,
vibe I got from
mm.
most of the games this
Definitely.
weekend, to be
And
honest.
the XG in the first half for Juventus was lower than any time during Allegri's spell, zero
Mm.
point zero 0.01 XG, almost a zero XG the first half. It just narrowly avoided it. So I tweeted that was a beautiful tribute to Max Allegri, that first half XG.
No,
But
no, it would have been a beautiful tribute to Max Allegri if they'd scored off that.
yeah,
That would have been a tribute to Allegri.
well
0.01
they couldn't
XG a
even they
goal.
didn't even get into their half in the first half.
Well,
So
well,
that would have been pretty difficult.
if you want to tribute Allegri, you have your expected goals is 0.0, and you manage to score somehow.
Scored an own goal.
That's a tribute to Allegri.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was more about Bologna. Like 75 minutes, it was a
Yeah,
masterclass
they
from
switched
Bologna,
up.
and then
Yeah,
Calafiori came off, who I'll come on to in a second. But they were 3-0 up after 75 minutes. It should have been 6. Then
yeah.
Calafiori came off. I saw, like, when you see that substitution, a couple of players come on. They were players. They were smiling and laughing, and when they were coming on, the 2 players that came on, and it just looked like Bologna just kind of lost concentration, and just they just thought the game was won, and that's all it takes. And they made a dreadful mistake for the 3-1, and but until then, I think
It was horrible, shocking defending that.
Motta showed really what he can do at Juve. The high press, winning the ball back early. I mean, they within 60 seconds they robbed Juventus of the ball in the area, and they should have scored. Dominating the possession and territory, the patterns of play, the way that they build up from the back, building it up through the field, the patterns, the angles, the movement off the ball. I mean, it was amazing. It was amazing football. And that was despite having no Xerxes playing, no Ferguson, missing their 2 best attacking players, and they still did this. Castro made his full debut, and I thought it was really, really good. So I think this kind of shows that when you have a system like Motta has, everybody understands it. It almost doesn't matter who plays. I guess like Gasperini and Atalanta as well, and De Zerbi when he's at his best. Like when you have a system that everybody understands, then whoever comes in, and I think that's what, from Juventus' point of view, that's what they'll be hoping for with Motta next season, that he can put together a system that everybody understands, because that's something that Juventus just haven't really had in terms of constructive.
Here's the thing, though. Like with that, and I mean, I think it's unfair on Motta, because I think there's going to be extreme amounts of pressure, and I think it's going to be. That's just the name of the game. You come to Juve, you come to Inter, you come to Milan. You have to deliver from day one. There's not a lot of patience there. But at the same time, there is a risk involved in what Juve have done here, and that is when you sack, regardless of the context of it, when you sack a coach that has won 13, 14 trophies at Juve, and you bring in someone like that, and even if he does well, but he doesn't win anything, and by well I mean he starts playing this kind of modern football that you want him to play, but he doesn't win anything, that can disrupt what Juve is, because Juve has always been about the results. Juve have never been playing beautiful football. Juve, the only thing that matters is winning. That's it, no matter how it looks. That to me is something that I wanted to talk about broadly this episode, about how the times are changing unprecedentedly in Italian football, in the sense that
Italian teams can't behave like that anymore.
No, and well, not just that, but just the identity crisis where Milan used to be what they used to be under Berlusconi. That's no longer true. Inter being crazy and dysfunctional under Moratti is no longer true. Juve being ruthless and winning is no longer true, where the only thing matters is winning. These things are no longer true. And things are really, really changing. At least that's where I think we're going towards. I'm not saying that it's not going to happen. I'm just saying that
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, there's
I think that's a fair point.
there's a lot of truths that no longer are true, at least not this season. And I think moving forward,
I think that's also modern football, though. I think that's where, in general, again, broadly speaking, that football clubs nowadays and football management teams need to adapt, and football coaches and football players need to adapt to the realities of how the game has changed, and and the same goes with traditional. As much as it pains me to say it, because I grew up on Italian football being, playing in a certain way, defensively being the best, and then hitting teams on the counter, being the smartest and the best defensively, and then and the fact that that generally doesn't work anymore in modern football, and I think in the same sense what you're saying, like Juventus historically, it's been all about the result and nothing else. Well, again, they're going to have to change in order to be successful, and if that means that they have to accept that next season, and I think that most people looking at where Juventus are starting from and what the work Motta has to do, realise that they are not going to be Scudetto favourites next season. They might have to give them a year. But as long as we see, and this is what has been my biggest frustration with Allegri, as long as we see that gradual development, even if it's, they might even finish fifth this season, even if it's from fifth to third, but we see an improvement in the players are improving, you can see something's being built, then I think most fans, anyway, I can only speak for fans, will accept that.
But there is a danger in that, and that needs to be acknowledged, that when you mess with a club's culture, when you mess with a club's DNA like that, there is a risk involved. You can do that at Napoli, but you can't do that at Juve. And I think that unless Giuntoli is careful, he'll be out the door just like Allegri as well. Because at Juve, the thing, and as long as Andrea Agnelli's on the sidelines, he will be using his political power to make this point.
I think you can only speak about projects for so long. Like, we always hear this word project. We've got or plan. We've got a 3-year plan. We've got a 5-year plan. Like, for starters, at a big club like Juventus, like Inter, like Milan, or any of the super clubs in Europe, you can't have a 5-year plan with a club like that. You can have a 3-year plan at the most, probably. So the number of years is shorter for starters. But then secondly, you can only use that word project and plan for as long as you're seeing progress. And as soon as it starts to fall apart, then it gets like with Ten Hag. Like Ten Hag at Man United. Like last year, people were happy to give him the benefit of the doubt of the first year because, it's a 3-year plan or whatever. And the first year they won the League Cup and you say, okay, they're building. And then this year you see everything falls apart and now it's basically over after 2 years and he's not going to get the 3 years. So it will only last.
Funny too. Yeah. Which is so funny too, because if he wins the FA Cup, then he would have won them 2 trophies.
Exactly. And that's what I mean. I think you need to, as long as we're seeing progress and we're seeing improvement in terms of performance, and of course points does come into that as well, then we can persist with it. But only for so long. Klopp is a good example at Liverpool. It was a disaster in his first year and a bit at Liverpool, but they persisted with it, and then look what happened afterwards. So, it's a difficult balancing act. It is a difficult balancing act. But I think it's as much down to Giuntoli, which I think you're saying more than Motta. I think the transfer market is going to be the key for Juventus.
Yeah,
this
this
summer.
is going to be like he's taking, like, I mean, on the one hand it's very brave, and I think if you are at a club like Juve and Inter and Milan, you have to be brave, you have to be wise, you have to pick your battles, you have to be diplomatic, all of these things, right? Um, so it really is squeaky bum time for Giuntoli already this summer, and I think we're going to see a lot of things at Juve. I think there's going to be quite a few changes. There's going
Yeah,
to be
for
quite a
sure.
bit
And
of player
we'll
trading, and
definitely
that's
come
something,
to
he's really good at, and that's
yeah.
something he's really good at.
Yeah, well, yeah, for sure. We will come onto that on following episodes, and also for Bologna as well. They've got a big summer as well if they lose players. I do want to just very quickly single out Riccardo Calafiori, because this was his performance of the
Mm,
season. He was absolutely incredible in this game. Defensively, he was faultless. He didn't Vlahovic. He
mm,
completely dominated. Not that Vlahovic got much service, but he completely dominated. But he also showed why he's such a modern defender by what he did going the other way. He scored 2 goals, 2 great finishes. The second goal, I mean, what a finish with his weaker foot, the composure to dink that over the goalkeeper. But that second goal kind of just summed up what Calafiori is. I mean, a brilliant interception on, I'm not sure, can't remember who it was, but the brilliant interception, and then he follows his run, and then he scores, and he is so great. I mean, he's second in Serie A for interceptions this season, and he's in the 93rd percentile for aerial duels won. He's so good in the air. He's in the 92nd percentile for his progressive run. So the way that he gets the ball and comes out of defence, he's so good at breaking the press, like when the attackers press, and he's in the 85th percentile for passes completed. He's such a great modern defender. He's so good physically, so good technically. He's so good on the ball. And he is Juventus's main target. I think Juventus will hope his price tag hasn't gone up after this performance. But I think you see the difference between him and Bremer in this game. Like, Bremer defensively is fantastic. He's brilliant, but he's more of an old-fashioned, old-school defender in that he
yeah,
only defends. And
yeah,
the third goal is the perfect example of the difference between these two
mm,
players. Bremer come out with the ball. He did a terrible hospital pass, the totally wrong kind of pass and I don't know which
yeah,
Juventus player it was, where Calafiori was coming up from him and he intercepted and took the ball off, and that was as much Bremer's fault for doing a bad pass out of defence. That's not how you bring the ball out and use the ball. And Bremer on the ball is really bad, and yeah, whereas Calafiori is the complete opposite. So it's interesting because Bremer might be sacrificed this summer for a lot of money in order to then bring in Calafiori. And just looking at the way that Motta plays his football, and he wants his players to be able to use the ball. I know that's something that wasn't important for Allegri, but for most modern managers, it is really important in modern football, because if you can't bring the ball out of defence, if you can't break the press, if you can't use the ball, then it's very easy for the opposition teams to press the ball, to win the ball high up, because you'll just give the ball away if you're that kind of defender. And also, you can't build out from the back with defenders like Bremer because they give the ball away. And this is a good key difference between Calafiori and Bremer in terms of modern football. So that was something that I found quite interesting
I thought it was
comparing.
very. I think that point that you made about the Bremer losing it to Calafiori was so symbolic, because that could actually happen at Juve too, like you said. I mean, it's just, I found that very, very
Mm.
interesting, and I thought of that when I saw it, and I think that's probably what's going to happen. I think Calafiori will be the symbol. I think Juve will look to build around him in their defense, and I think he would be. He's Italian. He's from Rome. I think he will happily take on that role to build a new, era at Juve, because it's also an incredible opportunity for him to do that and become that kind of, the flag bearer defensively at Juve into the future.
Yeah,
Is interesting, but yeah, I do think that's a very good point. But it's going to be. I mean, I think Thiago Motta going to Juve is almost, it's a done deal. I think Bremer and or Vlahovic. I'm not entirely sure if Vlahovic stays. I have my
mm.
doubts. But I think now it's squeaky bum time for Giuntoli. Now he has to deliver. He has to deliver. He has to hit the transfer market, running, hit the ground running. There, he has to
100%.
deliver.
Absolutely. Because he didn't deliver last year, but that wasn't
Well,
all his fault. That was because he was the constraints of the financial situation of the
and
club.
also when he was appointed, I mean, De Laurentiis did
Yeah,
his very
very
best to
late. It was very
screw.
late. It was too late.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
I
too
mean,
late.
De Laurentiis managed to screw up the transfer market of two clubs last summer, and
Yes, he did.
so
He
it
really
was
did. It was a
so
great
it
point.
was,
It was a great
yeah.
point. Yes, talking about the future now, Inter. So let's do a little explainer
Mm,
here. I know that we're recording this during a delicate time because
mm,
there is going to be probably by the time this pod comes out, there probably will have been more news about exactly what happens. But as it
mm,
stands, as we're recording this on Tuesday, the situation is that in 2021, US fund Oaktree Capital provided a 275 million loan to Inter's holding company Suning with a 12% interest rate. This needed to be repaid in full on May the 20th, 2024, which is yesterday, Monday. If the loan was not repaid, Oaktree will assume control. Assume control as the club was effectively used as collateral at the time of the original agreement. So, Nima, what I want to do is I want you to do a little explainer here. So, I've got a few questions here for you. First of all,
okay.
if you can just sum up kind of where we're at right now. I know this might become very dated, so do as briefly as you
Well,
can.
I'd say you've summed it up really well. With the only caveat, of course, being that yesterday was a bank holiday in Luxembourg, and so the expiry date has been moved to today, the 21st, midnight. That's
Mm.
the only thing that I would add to that, because if it's a bank holiday, the banks are closed, you can't do anything. So naturally, it gets moved upwards one day. So other than that, the issue is that Suning want to repay this loan with the money from another company, Pimco, with loan from another business, from another like bank or investment bank, and Oaktree aren't having it and claiming that they have other clauses which needs to be satisfied, and this counts as a sale. And if it counts as a sale, they have a clause that says they have a 20% sell-on fee, and so it's not just the 400 million; it's actually 400 plus blah blah blah, and so on and so forth. So these are the reports that are coming out. What is obvious is after that. I mean, I was in Brera. We'd just been to Bottinero, Zanetti's restaurant, and met some friends there. Hadn't been there for a while, and because he used to be there quite a bit back a few years ago, and met the people who run it, and spoke with them. And when this news broke, the childish message or this kind of letter of defeat from Stephen Zhang
Mm.
that when he published on
Blaming
in
Oak Tree,
this,
basically.
well, yeah, and it's astonishing to me, and again it just goes to show how unprepared he is for holding this position. This was his project. He can't, everything. I believe that a good manager appoints good people around him. And he has done that with Marotta. He has done that with Ausilio, Antonello, all these guys. They've all kind of found their balance under him. And then he's kind of given them the keys and say, okay, you run that. That's a talent and gift in and of itself, right?
Mm.
But the resolution of the oak tree was entirely on him. That's not something Daddy Marotta can do for Steven. That's something Steven had to solve.
Mm.
And Steven did not solve it. Steven, in fact, turned it into a ginormous shit show because he had 3 years to solve it. He apparently had no idea what the contract said, because threatening with legal action is no one cares. If you actually know what the contract you've signed says and you are secure in what you have signed, you bully through, and come hell or high water, be the legal hell or high water, you take that because you believe that you've signed it right. You know what you have done. But it's evident that he hasn't. He didn't know that, and so now he's going to lose the club. That's what I think. I think Suning have lost Inter, and I think that this is going to be. Of course, they're going to fight this, unless they can come to an amicable solution. Which, to be fair, from what we understand, it's not just the club being repossessed. Oaktree also have to pay Suning. That was a term of the contract or the loan. That should Suning default on this money, then Oaktree have to pay a remaining, I don't know, 200-300 million euros to Suning to retain the club's control of the club.
The difference between the value and
Something like
the amount of the loan that's
exactly.
owed. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, exactly. So they come to an agreement about the valuation. They subtract the debts. They subtract what the loan was, and then they have a sum left, and then they pay that, and then that's it. So that's from what I understand, at least, that this is worked out. My thing on this is that, well, Oaktree, on the one hand, have been at Inter for 3 years. People forget that. Since Suning, via their holding company in Luxembourg, took out the loan using Inter as collateral, Oaktree demanded, as a term of the loan, to have at least a seat on the board and also be able to dictate the finances to balance Inter's books, which they have done very successfully. What Marotta's been able to do is to do that and attain sporting success, which is hardly easy. So that's where we are now. So I'm not too worried about this because Oaktree are not too interested in running a football club. They made that very clear. So they're not going to run a football club. What they're going to do is basically, I think it's going to be a continuation of everything that's happened, the financial sustainability stuff and all the stuff that we've seen in the last 3 years. I think the only difference will be twofold. One is that Oaktree will put in their guys on the financial side, meaning to increase the revenue. They will use their contacts will become very useful for Inter in terms of growing the club in terms of brand and revenue streams and the new stadium and all that, which I think is incredibly positive. There's nothing wrong with that. Oaktree are, I think, 10 times the size of Elliott in terms of the portfolios they control. So they do have the right connections and contacts to do these things. And secondly, they will have to look towards getting rid of that bond that matures in February 2027. They need to handle that situation, and they also need to handle somewhere around 200-300 million of the club's debts to bring that down. And then you have the sporting side, which is the part where I think we're going to have a situation where who's going to be the next club president, and I wouldn't be surprised. And for Inter fans, if they want stability, the best thing they can do is to appoint Beppe Marotta as the president.
Okay, let me just stop you there. Right. So first of all, so you're saying that basically Oaktree are not going to do what Elliott did at Milan. They're not going to run the club. That means they're going to need to find a buyer. Do you think they have a buyer already? And if they don't have a buyer, because and obviously, takeover deals take a long time, and they're always they're never always easy to complete and to complete quickly, and it could linger on. If there is this period between finding the buyer and completing the takeover, what will happen this summer in terms of the transfer market, in terms of the finances, in terms of buying and selling players? Would you be willing to have to sell players during that interim period of the takeover, or I know you're not going to have 100% answer, but how do you
look? I think it depends. Again, I think it depends. Look, I do think they have buyers lined up. That I do think. And I think that the takeover becomes much more easier now that Suning are out of the picture. It becomes much, much more, it's just one transaction. It's Oaktree, the owners, and the sellers, and the buyer. You don't have this complicated thing with Suning if Suning leave, unless Suning magically find the money and pay Oaktree off by midnight tonight, which seems very, very unlikely. So if you've got 500 million euros lying about, then by all means give Stephen a ring. But yeah, so that's that. But when I say that I don't think they're going to be interested in running the club like Elliott did, well, they already have been running the club for 3 years on the financial side. I think if they take an interest or if they start running the club, they will do it in terms of to increase the revenue. I think they will put their people in charge of the financial side and the
What I
marketing
mean
side and
though
the
is that
growth brand
Elliot.
side.
What I mean though, Nima, just to reframe that question, what I mean is that Elliot didn't sell the club on for how many years after? Like 2-3
Yeah,
years.
I
Like,
think that's what's going to happen. I think that's what's going to happen. I think that they have buyers lined up, but I do think that they want to. They're not going to stress over this. I think they look at Inter as one of their many assets that they control, and they look at it as an asset that they need to get in line with where they need it to be in order to sell it on. I don't think it's going to be, unless we're all surprised, we will all be surprised, and they actually have a buyer raring to go tonight at midnight who comes in and says, we've taken over the club. We intend to sell it over to this buyer. We're in advanced talks with them. Like that would be the quickest solution. But I don't think that's going to happen.
yeah.
I'd see that as
So
highly unlikely.
you don't think so? Inter fans don't have to worry about selling players this summer or anything
Look, it
like that.
depends. It depends on how Oaktree view this. If Oaktree view this as we need to service the debt, meaning the club's debts, not Suning's debts. Like Suning are out now; they're gone, right? If the club passes to Oaktree, then it's Oaktree. They have a bond that matures in 2027, and the club has 300 million debt. If Oaktree decide that we need to start servicing that debt, which is not impossible, by the way, they could tell Marotta, well, actually, you need to end the summer on 60 million plus, for example, because they want to pay off that debt within 3 years or however many years they want to pay that off with, pay that off as. I don't know. We don't know. We don't know what they want. But what we do know is that they don't want to run the sporting side of things. That they've been very clear on.
That's where a new buyer will be important, because if a new buyer comes in, then that removes that possibility of having to make that 60 million or however much it's going to be.
However, or even they can. I mean, they can also decide that it's nothing, because you don't know that. We don't know what their thinking is. That's what I'm saying. I'm not. I'm just saying we need to wait and see what they actually say. But I think it's clear that the way that these banks, investment banks, hedge funds run things, it's very clear. They want to tidy up the numbers even more and then sell on at a profit. The problem with that is that I don't think Inzaghi, I don't think Marotta, I don't think any of these guys are willing to stay on for another 3 summers of what happened 3 years ago after Antonio Conte left, where if they come in and say you need to make 100 and you need to end them,
they don't want to do that all over again.
That I don't see happening, and that's for me. That's what I'm looking at. If Marotta decides to leave, well, then I would panic. Then it's time to panic, because if Marotta turns around after having signed a contract until June 2027 and goes, you know what, I'm out of here, buona vacanza, arrivederci, then I would be very worried if I'm an Inter fan. But if he stays on, I wouldn't be as worried.
Yeah.
Until we know, look, we need to know what happens Tuesday midnight. That's today at midnight. We need to understand what's going on. But I do think that it's safe to say that after that letter that he published, Stephen Zhang, that was a goodbye letter. That was a defeat. That was a declaration of defeat. And he effed up big time. He had 3 years to handle this. He had 3 years to sort it out. And the fact that he didn't read the contract properly and didn't understand what it was in it, and the fact that he was scared by the legal threats by Oaktree, means that he screwed up. He didn't know what he was doing. And that's entirely on Steven. And I think that if you lose an asset worth $1 billion for about 700 million, 30% less than it's actually worth, I think Steven's going to struggle to succeed in the family business, because that is a disgraceful screw up.
Yeah.
This was his chance to prove himself, and he turned out that he wasn't good enough to do it. And so whatever happens for him in the future, I think he will be sidelined by the dad, especially, who is very powerful and very hands-on, and he doesn't fail. He the comeback that Suning have done in China is thanks to the dad, in terms of how much they have made back a lot of their how much they're worth, how much the bounce back that the business has had in China is due to the dad, because Zhang Jindong is very powerful. He's a very competent man, but Steven has been given Inter, and if he messes that up and loses the club at a 30% loss of what the club is worth, well, that's the end of Steven Zhang's career, or at least for a long time. He'll be sidelined. But for Inter, I think we'll know. The proof will be in the pudding with what happens with Marotta. If they talk about continuation, if they continue with, basically saying, okay, well, because that's another thing. Oaktree have been there for 3 years, so they have gotten everything in line. But if they're going to start, if it's going to be another Groundhog Day situation where after Inter win the Scudetto, they're going to start asset stripping to pay off debt, I don't see Marotta staying. And that's when the panic goes. And then once again, it is Groundhog Day. And then everyone who blamed Suning will look really dumb, because then it's not Suning. This is what happens when you bring on an American hedge fund and an investment banker. They are ruthless. They don't give a shit about what you feel, what you think, what you feel. They just care. They have
about the numbers and the money.
Yeah, they have their Excel sheet, and they like black numbers. They don't like red numbers. Simple as that.
Yeah, well said. Okay, well, let's just very quickly on Inter versus Lazio, that it was a nothing game at all for Inter. But
No.
I knew you were at the game, so you how was the experience of the match?
It was unbelievable. It was, I've been very blessed to have been at that stadium and covered many Inter games. But that was the vibe around the San Siro. I went there some 4 hours before at 2 o'clock just to soak it in, and it was already thousands and thousands of people there. It was unreal. It was a beautiful day. It was a hot day. It was just complete party mode. Everyone was so happy and relaxed, and then you go into the stadium itself, and you see the T4 choreography and everything that happened before that, and because they did a 360-degree one, and they were counting down to when that was going to be shown, and then the noise level, the singing, it was as if the entire stadium was the curva. Like, that's how it felt. It was loud chanting and singing from all areas of the stadium for large parts of that 90 minutes. And it was truly, truly unbelievable. And then, of course, you have the trophy presentation, and then you had this kind of little mini concert with Luciano Ligabue singing Urlando contro il cielo, which is kind of like the national anthem of Inter. And that was unbelievable at a packed San Siro. You had the fireworks. It was truly fantastic. It was truly, truly remarkable. It was truly fantastic. It was unique. It was historic. The second star. It's only ever happened once before in Inter's history. If you take into consider Milan and Inter, it's only happened 6 times before with Juve, like 3 for Juve, 2 for Inter, and 1 for Milan. It's only ever happened 6 times before in Italian football history. So it was a historic day. It was a historic event, and it was really, really nice to be a part of that. And it was it was breathtaking at times. It was very emotional too, the way that the sound level. I mean, when Inter is a very difficult club, it's not like Juve, it's not like other clubs. Milan is a special place, and Inter is a very special club in the sense that Inter is very rarely united. But when this fan base unites, when this club unites, it doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it's very, very beautiful and very powerful. And you can see how united they are behind Simone Inzaghi and Marotta. That was one of the things that I found very, very interesting, was how incredibly loved Simone Inzaghi is, and how incredibly loved and united people are behind him, and how he's managed to win people over by being like this. He is like this. He doesn't change the tone of his voice. He doesn't make big statements. He's very, it's the kind of Sven-Goran Eriksson style of leadership that he has, and people really enjoy that. They really like it. They found a way that they found their balance with him in terms of the relationship, and he's very, very, very loved, very loved. And the fact that he's not complained, the fact that he's gone through all of these 2-3 years. Last summer was the first summer where he actually could go ±0, and then the football that they played, which is the most beautiful football I've seen Inter play consistently, and to win playing that kind of football, which again, like I said, old truths in Italian football have changed. Inter have never been a play beautiful football club. This is the club where Helenio Herrera, Mourinho, and Trapattoni and Conte succeeded, right? They are, that's how you win at Inter. It's hard work and kind of that's what matters. But he's done it playing incredible football, possession-based, modern football. And it's he seems happy. He talks about wanting to stay and be there for a long time, and so on and so forth. So
yeah, well, yeah. I mean, there was more riding on this game for Lazio than for Inter, and Lazio were only 2 minutes away from what would have been a massive win for them in the race for the Champions League, or rather for sixth place, which would have given them a chance of potentially qualifying for the Champions League if Atalanta can win the Europa League. But that they conceded 2 minutes from time, and that will be quite gutting for them. And in fact, they now can't qualify for the Champions League. They can't finish sixth because they're 3 points behind Roma, and Roma have the head-to-head. So that is done for them now, if my maths is correct. That is a shame, but I don't think it takes away from the impact that Igor Tudor has had since he's come in. Last 7 games, won 5, drawn 2, and since he's beaten Juventus twice. He's been 2 minutes away from beating Inter as well. And
he's managed to unlock Daichi Kamada,
yes,
which I think is the most important thing. I think he's going to be key. I really rate Kamada, and I was very surprised.
If he stays, that is.
Yeah. Well, I think he will. I think Tudor has made it clear that he's going to be at the center of the project, and I think he will. I think he will stay. I think he will stay. And I think that I'm happy for Lazio fans because they now have something to actually look forward to, because Kamada, I think, can actually become very iconic for them. I think he's very important in this system, and he was really good.
And he's the kind of player Tudor wants as well. He brings that energy and he has a goal threat, of course.
He does,
and he scored. I mean, I thought it was poor goalkeeping from Sommer. It's not often.
Was.
Often we can criticise Sommer this season. He's been the best goalkeeper in Serie A, but that was for me. He should have saved that. But good game, very good game from Lazio. Although of course Inter were already on holiday, already thinking of the Euros.
Inter were on holiday. Look, that was it was. If the Bologna game was a kickabout with your mates, I don't know what. Inter were on the beach. I mean, it was literally. Yeah. Kickabout with flip-flops at the beach. I mean, there was nothing there. There was a bit of bursts of intensity, but
no, it's just one of those games, wasn't it? But Roma beat Genoa, crucial goal from Lukaku to win the game with 10 men. So Roma have clinched sixth place. So this is what Roma need to qualify for the Champions League, and it's not, according to the latest information coming out, it's not as simple as Atalanta just winning the Europa League. In order for sixth place to be worth the Champions League for Roma need Atalanta to obviously beat Bayer Leverkusen in the Europa League final on Wednesday, but they also need Atalanta to finish fifth in Serie A. Yeah. So if Atalanta were to finish third or fourth, which could very well happen now, then, and in fact, if Atalanta win their last 2 games of the season in Serie A, they will finish third or fourth. So if Atalanta were to finish third or fourth, the extra Champions League spot, the 6th Champions League spot, would not be given to Italy. So that's how.
But there's a very simple solution to this, and that is that Atalanta beat Bayer Leverkusen on Wednesday and then stop playing.
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Just win the win the Europa League, and then send in the kids in the last two games, because it won't matter. You'll be in the Champions League, and I think
that would be nice. But obviously, they have to beat. They have to beat Bayer Leverkusen first.
And I would love it
it's
too.
not
It would
even
be the most Italian thing ever, and it would piss off everyone. Like for Italy to have 6th place in the Champions League by Atalanta winning the Europa League, and then just basically not doing anything for the last two games, just to make sure
that would be glorious. Can you
it
imagine?
would
Can you imagine
piss them off.
Serie A 6 teams in the Champions League, Premier League 4. That would be...
And we need also Fiorentina to win the Conference League final
to give us
and
9.
not finish.
To give us 9.
Well,
we can't get 10. We actually can't have 10.
We can if they finish outside of the 9, outside of the top 8.
Oh, right. Okay, gets that. Okay,
so I need Fiorentina and Atalanta to do a job for me.
Yeah, I don't
know. I need Fiorentina. I need Fiorentina and Atalanta to win their finals, and then do.
That's not going to happen though, because Atalanta play Fiorentina, don't they? So
they can draw that.
Maybe we need a draw. Maybe we need a Biscotto.
I need the holy mother of biscotti in that game, like just because. If they both win it, I would love that. It would piss off all the.
Let's talk about Atalanta then. The final. First of all, they beat Lecce, which I think was important because they needed to bounce back psychologically. They needed to have a win to go into the Europa League final, and they got the win. Some more rotations from Gasperini. Scamacca comes in, continues his great form, goal and assist, and we saw again how much he will be missed against Juventus, but also how important it will be against Leverkusen. And I feel like that is the narrative going into the final, that this is Scamacca. We need Scamacca to turn up in this game. If Atalanta are going to win this game against Leverkusen, we need Scamacca to have a big game, to do some magic, to really be the man. So is that something you would go along with? This is
without a doubt. Scamacca has to, like I said last week on Thursday, I think I said, look, now's your time to show. Like, I mean, you're 25 years old. You're not a kid anymore. And you've been unbelievable these last few months. And I need you to step up. I need you to show who you are in these big games. Because he again, the gift he has, the ability he has, he can create something out of nothing. And not very many players have that. And we need him to do that. We really, really need him to do that.
Yeah, we do. It's going to be very, very difficult for Atalanta. I mean, Leverkusen are big favourites. We cannot deny that. They've had an unbeaten season. Unbeaten in the Bundesliga now. 28 wins, 6 draws. 51 games, is it? Or 52? Unbeaten in all competitions. 2 games away from an unbeaten treble. Their physical condition, I'll say it again, and I don't care. I'll say it. It's not human, their physical condition. The quality of their players they've got on the wide roles is going to be very interesting, because I think Frimpong and Grimaldo have been absolutely devastating out wide. And so we need Ruggeri and Zappacosta really to try and match up.
But here's the thing, though. One thing I think is a bit, they've got midweek final against Atalanta, and then they got the German Cup final as well 3 days later. Leverkusen. So
they're not going. I don't see them rotating for this game. But then,
no, of course not.
Maybe they will. I mean, I don't know. They rotated against Roma, still won. But yeah, it's going to be very, very difficult. And De Roni being injured is also a big blow, and very devastating for him because I think he's going to leave, isn't he, this summer? So it's a real shame for him. Someone that's been there the whole way. But I said last week that my heart, of course, is with Atalanta. My heart tells me Atalanta are going to win this game, but my head tells me that it's going to be Leverkusen. My head tells me that Atalanta needed to win that final last week. I know you disagree with me there, but my head tells me that psychologically they needed to win that final in order to win this final. But I hope they can do it. I really hope they can do it. But
for me, I think Leverkusen are a tough ask, regardless of if Atalanta had won the Coppa Italia.
Definitely,
it's just, I think,
and that's why I think it's on Scamacca, because he wasn't there, and he does have that X factor that on his day he can do it to anyone.
He really can, and he needs to. We need
have
to
to
see.
score. We have to score the first goal in this final. For me,
Yeah,
there's no
Atalanta
doubt
can't
about that.
afford to chase the game.
No.
Like they can't do that. They
And
can't chase the
Leverkusen are
game
so devastating when you
on
chase
the
them
counter.
because on the
Yeah.
counter, yeah, they are devastating. We need the
No,
first goal.
we need the first goal. Atalanta needs to have the first goal, and I need Atalanta to. It would be, I would love to see. I mean, it depends on, I'm looking at who they've got up front, and it's, Atalanta. They have depth, which I'm really happy about. But it's going
We
to
need
be
some
interesting.
luck as well. Give us a bit of luck in a final. I mean, we haven't had
Mm,
any luck in these finals. Like last year, like we deserved to
no,
win at least two of those three finals last year.
yeah,
At least two, maybe even all three. To be honest with
mm,
you, Inter
yeah,
outplayed City in the final. Deserved to win that final, in my opinion. Even though it was tight, they were the better team.
mm,
Um,
yeah.
Roma definitely deserved to beat.
Roma definitely
Definitely deserved
deserved to win that.
to
Like
win their
Roma
final.
was
Yeah,
just
yeah.
the Roma thing.
And then the Fiorentina game was a kind of a 50-50, and then and they were probably the better team in terms of the play in that game as well. So let's have a bit of luck for once in a final. I mean, come on, we've got to have some luck, even if they deserve to lose. Give us the luck and let's win this final. Just let me just sum up. Let's just quickly go through the other games without going on into them. So Fiorentina 2, Napoli 2. Some brilliant free kicks from Kvaratskhelia and Biraghi, which I was not happy to see because I'm worried now he's going to get called. He's going to get called up to the Euros after that
Oh,
free kick. Yeah, this is just one of those that Fiorentina don't really care. They only care about the Conference League final. Napoli just want the season to end. I mean, disastrous end to the season. No wins in 6 now, and 1 win in 11 to end the season for Napoli. I mean, it's just horrible. And then Torino Milan, really good performance from Torino in this game. This is the kind of performance that I really believe that Torino were capable of doing more of this season. And I think it's a bit frustrating because I do think that they had it in them this season to play like this. They were really, really good in this game. I know Milan are on the beach as well now, so maybe we
yeah,
should.
but they've literally got nothing to play for. I mean,
Yeah.
what do you want from them? They got 74 points. They're second. Like, there's nothing to
I
play
would
for.
say one thing: Tomori has been really poor again this second half of the season,
Hmm.
and he was at blame for 2 goals. And maybe Southgate was right about him. We sit here and we criticise him, but he hasn't progressed. Tomori, we've said this recently, he hasn't progressed and still makes the same mistakes, and he still has the same chinks and weaknesses, especially aerially. Aerially, he's really not strong enough in the air. Tomori. Um, in the way that he defends aerially. I don't think he's bad in the air. I think he's quite good in the air, but the way he defends the box aerially, yeah, which we saw in that game. So that's a bit of a concern, Tomori, going forward. And then, of course, there's the manager chase, which we'll talk about more in future episodes. But Fonseca seems to be the favourite. De Zerbi is available
That
next.
to me is insane.
Yeah, I don't get it at all.
Like Fonseca to me, like I said, it's a poor man's Portuguese Pioli.
Mm,
Um, De Zerbi, that would be that. I mean, I'm not sure he's ready for that job, but at least that's a brave. Do you know what I mean? Like there's an idea behind bringing De Zerbi. Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? But with Fonseca, that's
And he
just a
fits the
poor.
project. He fits the project
Yeah,
in terms of developing younger players,
yeah.
not being unhappy when they sell players, and still bring. Do you know what
Exactly,
I mean? He fits the
exactly. Yeah,
project, but
I mean, and also he's a young coach. You know,
and there's
he
hope
plays.
there. There's hope there. With
Yeah,
Fonseca, you know what you're going to get.
yeah.
Do you know what I
I
mean?
don't
It's
see. I don't understand Fonseca at all. De Zerbi
mm,
would make sense. It would be interesting,
mm,
for sure, and to see if De Zerbi's ready for a big job. I mean, there's lots of talking points. There. There's an idea behind it. There's a
mm.
freshness about it. Fonseca to
And
me
the
is just
fans want
lazy.
it as well. And he's also knows the club. He was a youth team player. He
Yeah,
supports
yeah.
Milan. He wouldn't need time to settle it and to
No,
settle in. And understand the environment. So yeah, I don't get it. But I mean, according to Sport Italia and Sky Sport Italia, who are two better sources than Gazzetta when it comes to transfer news,
Mm.
they say that they've got nothing on De Zerbi. So I mean, we'll see. We'll see how that develops in the next days. The relegation race, Nima.
Oh
Just
my
to finish
god.
off before we do Baggio, Premface and Serie Ass of the week. I know this is your favourite talking points. So some massive games, 4 massive games for the relegation zone, and this past weekend. Cagliari are safe after they beat Sassuolo 2-0, and Sassuolo are relegated. They're relegated, which is a shame. It's sad after 11 years in Serie A. I think the injury of Berardi was the key here for them going down. But it's been a really, really bad season from Sassuolo. They
It's
go
been a
down.
disastrous
Yeah.
season. They actually go down, and they shouldn't be going down given the quality of players they have. But one thing that I thought was interesting was that Berardi wasn't even there. He was watching Formula One, I think,
No way.
whilst they were
Is that
getting
right? You're
whilst they were getting
joking. At
relegated. Yeah,
Imola, yeah. Wow.
yeah, and it was which
That's
is
unacceptable.
which is very interesting.
Hmm.
I mean, he's injured, but yeah,
That's
but which
unacceptable, man. You've
yeah,
got to be there when
mm,
your team needs you.
mm.
Monza nil Frosinone won, a massive win for Frosinone. They now just need a draw at home to Udinese on the last day of the season to stay up. They can only get relegated now, Frosinone, if
They
they
lose to
lose to
Udinese.
Udinese and Empoli beat Roma.
Mm.
So that's a massive win for them. And then Udinese, this was huge. Udinese won. What an ending to this game. Udinese won, Empoli won. It was 0-0 going into injury time. And then Empoli got a penalty in the 90th minute. And they score. Niang scores. It looks like they're going to win the game. And this would have been absolutely massive for Empoli in order to stay up. And then Udinese get a penalty in the 14th minute of injury time, and on the VAR, and there was a ridiculous delay of about like 5 or 6 minutes for while they were trying to. I don't know what the hell was going on. Everybody was just on the pitch, like, what's going on? And then Samadžić puts it away, our boy Samadžić, and they draw, and that was huge for Udinese because they would have been in big trouble now. But they're still very precarious for Udinese. They probably need to beat Frosinone,
They
to
need
be
to beat
honest,
Frosinone. They need to beat
because,
Frosinone.
and I'll explain why. The reason why is if they draw with Frosinone, there's three teams that can get relegated now.
Mm.
Either Frosinone, Udinese, or Empoli. Frosinone, I've explained, in order to stay up, they only need a draw. Udinese, if Udinese draw with Frosinone, they can be overtaken by Empoli if Empoli beat Roma. Now, Roma have nothing to play for because, as we've explained, they've got sixth place. They can't finish higher or lower than sixth. So Roma have got nothing to play for on the last day of the season. Empoli at home. So I would expect Empoli to win that game because if you understand Serie A culture and how it works, teams don't. It's seen as disrespectful to try and beat a team that are fighting against relegation when you've got nothing to play for. That's just the way it's done in Italy. So Roma,
Italian football honor is special.
it is. So I expect Empoli to win that game, and then it's down to Udinese. If Empoli win, they're up. They're safe. If Empoli win, I think I'm correct in saying so. So that
Yeah,
puts
no. If
them,
Empoli win, they're safe.
yeah,
If Udinese
yeah,
don't win, so if Empoli win, Udinese have to win.
yeah.
But
Exactly.
if Udinese lose and Empoli draw, we have a play out
That's correct. Yeah, we have a play out. But if
between Udinese and
so, I
Empoli.
think if Udinese don't beat Frosinone, I think they're going to go down.
Yeah, me too. I think so as well. And I mean, it was funny because that game against Empoli, I was watching it at the San Siro at the media center. Everyone was glued to the TV because the ending to that game was insane. First Niang with a penalty, and then Samadžić with a penalty in the 14th extra time. And so everyone was watching that, and the camera, I remember, was zooming in at Nicola, and he was pissed. It was it was a very
Amazing
interesting
ending.
moment.
Amazing ending. Right, let's just finish off with Baggio, Premface, and Serie Ass of the week. Okay, so Baggio, I've got one, you've got one. So first of all, I want to go with Thuram's dad in the Inter celebrations. This was hilarious. This was so good. So Thuram is doing the famous jump. You know, those who don't jump as are Juventino, and Thuram's dad just comes in and he just slaps Thuram around the head. I found that hilarious.
Whilst wearing an Inter shirt with a Scudetto. I mean, it was just, the whole thing was just weird. Like, it was just
Thuram's dad is a bit of a strange character in some ways, to be honest with you. Very intelligent guy, very intelligent guy. But yeah, I've just found that funny. I love that.
It was for me. It's the Baggio of the week is it's Italian football. Like, when it comes to whether it's celebrating or like the San Siro was this year, or if it was Napoli last year, Milan the year before that. It's just Italian football. When they want to put on a show, they put on a show like no one else. But we also were sent in a Baggio from Roberto Rausa. He's from he's from Puglia, and he was in Puglia. I was watching Serie D, Casarano.
He's also a Bedford boy as well, by the way.
Is he? Okay,
yes,
I didn't
he
know.
is. Yeah, he's a friend. He's a friend of mine.
Oh, I didn't know. I knew you knew each other, but I didn't know if you how well. But he was. We've been DMing, and he's. He was in Puglia. It was the Stadio Antonio Bianco, this tiny little stadium, watching Casarano against Gallipoli, and it was literally him and maybe 300 like 40, 50-year-old men cussing in dialetto, and it was just so fucking beautiful. I'm sorry. Like, it's just so beautiful. Like, just this like Serie D, they're angry at the referee cussing in dialetto pugliese. It's just, and the sun was shining, and the stadium is old and very hearty, and it's just, you fall in like that. To me, is like that is Italian football. I love that. Like, this club has been around for God knows how long, and it means so much to them, and it's Italian football at its most beautiful. I think it was Casarano Gallipoli he was watching. I can't remember. No, it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful, and it was. It was Serie D, and the further down you come in Serie D,
the crazier it gets.
Yeah, and the more beautiful it gets.
Yeah.
One would say. Some would say.
Yeah. Premface of the week. Do you have a Premface? I've got one.
You go for it then.
Okay, so mine is I don't know if you've seen it, the new Netflix documentary on the Euro 2020 final between Italy and England at Wembley. It's called Attack on Wembley, and it's about all the
Oh my God.
It's about all the hooliganism that we saw from the fans at that game. And oh my gosh, if you want to see the violent side of Premfacery, watch this documentary, because it's absolutely shocking. It really is. Like, it is just a bunch of England fans behaving like wild, drunk animals. I mean, it's the drugs, the drink, the fighting, the smashing and throwing bottles, bloodied fans everywhere, the racism and anti-Italian discrimination, the one of the chances, stick your spaghetti up your ass, let's go effing mental, like jumping and dancing on buses, jumping and dancing on buildings, on climbing up traffic lights. I mean, it was like a war zone. One guy with a firework lit a firework up his ass. And then, of course,
I remember that from Twitter. I remember that. Jesus Christ. He actually stuck a firecracker up his own butt. Yeah. It was the most insane thing I've seen. Yeah, I remember that now that you mention it.
Gold, yeah. And then, of course, the serious stuff, which was like the charging into the ground without tickets and stewards getting I mean, how somebody didn't die that day, I really don't know. It's a miracle. If you watch this documentary, you wonder how the hell did someone not die. And the obviously the racist abuse, the racist chants against the black players that missed the penalty after the game, and then the mural of Rashford was defaced. But the Premface comment from this was the best. This is just the best Premface comment ever that came from it. There was an England fan that they were interviewing, that they were asking about all this violence. He was at the game, and how do you explain all this violence that we saw from the England fans? And he blamed the pandemic for the way that the England fans behave in the final. He goes, "We'd been locked away for a year. Humans are not meant to be locked away. This was an escape. We wouldn't usually behave like this."
Right.
Yeah, they've never behaved like this before at tournaments and matches in Europe. Oh God, that made me laugh. That did, but
so
it was
hilarious.
I don't want to. There was a serious side to it. They interviewed.
All I'm going to say is I can't remember which broadcaster it was, showing a video of Leicester Square after they'd left, like post-zombie apocalypse.
Yes, it was.
I don't think I've ever seen like this much carnage in my life.
No, it was.
You couldn't see the ground for all the empty bottles and glass. Like it was just absolute mental. Like they went crazy. And then no, it's not the pandemic's fault. Get out of here. I think there was a lot of pent up frustration from the lockdown. Absolutely. But you don't get to blame the pandemic and the lockdowns for that behavior, which they've been doing for many a decade, without any lockdowns. Let's put it that way.
Exactly.
So let's not blame.
I'm
Let's
sure
take
we'll see it
responsibility.
again next month in Germany. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm.
Put a bet on the 10 German Bombers song being sung
Oh,
by
they
fans
always sing
in
that. They
Germany.
bloody every time they play Sweden, they sing that. I don't know why, but so, I mean,
Well, they'll definitely be singing it in Germany, that's for sure.
yeah.
Right.
I mean, every time England plays Sweden in a World Cup qualifier through the years, we've seen them. They just sing that, and it's just part of it. That's just what they do. Like
2 World Wars and 1 World Cup. That's the other one. They'll definitely sing that in Germany as
they'll
well.
be definitely singing that. For
Okay,
sure. No, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the Euros, because I think England are actually. Look, I'm looking at that like this, and I'm thinking France, obviously number one favorites, then England. But I got to say, watch out for Germany.
No, I
Like
agree with you there. I agree with you. I agree
they
with you. Germany
are.
are one to
It's coming
watch.
together, isn't it?
Yeah, Germany definitely are my third team after France and England. Now, right, Serie Ass of the week. We've got a few here. So first of all, the Atalanta post on Serie A Twitter before the game, the English was just abysmal. It was Atalanta are in 2 cup finals this season. The first one, the Coppa Italia Frecciarossa decisive match versus Juventus. What is that?
That is beautiful.
It really is.
That literally is. Oh, Francesco, ma tu parli inglese bene. Like it literally is. Oh, Francesco, you're the one who speaks good English. Do something, put something out there. I
AI
love it. I
Francesco,
love that.
I think.
Yeah, grande
The second one
Francesco.
I have was,
Bless him.
oh my gosh, that you have to check out the Serie A North America Insta account on the Coppa Italia again. And this wasn't just Serie A North America, actually. Sorry, I'm not singling them out. This
It was
was just
Serie
Serie A.
A, wasn't it?
Just Serie A.
Yeah.
This was Serie A, but it was on North America as well. It was on all the Serie A channels actually. And this isn't the first time that they've done this. And I know this has actually frustrated quite a few people that actually were covering the game there. And it's not the first time that the Serie A have used the Coppa Italia final to invite a bunch of influencers who are just completely unimportant nobodies. Like nobody even knows who the hell they are. And they send them to this game. They've also got no football link at all.
That's the thing for me.
Like they're influencers.
There's no football link.
They're just celebrity influencers. They're not football influencers, which are bad enough. They're people like Speed and the idiots like that.
That would have made sense, wouldn't it, if you had Speed there? Do you know what I mean? Because at least he's a football. Like he doesn't know anything about the game, but his audience is a football crowd. Like they're kids who play football games or
but they interviewed these people that were just influencers that had nothing to do with football, and I read them out. The Pointer Brothers was a couple of guys that are influencers. QCP.
Who's QCP?
No idea.
What is QCP?
No idea. And another one, a lady called Julia Science West. So
what is that? What is that?
I mean, they're influencers, yet they've got the most. Their names are not the catchiest names to influence people.
Oh, QCP is that idiot. I was going to say, that's the idiot who stands. This guy who pretends to be some sort of a chef and he's naked. Like
I no idea. I mean, QCP for me sounds like a car park, like a multi-story car park or something. Like.
No, this guy his name is Gianluca Conte. He's an Italian American, and he basically he's like a model, fitness model, whatever. And he's created this thing where he's basically he cooks. He's not a chef. He just throws food together, and he's standing there pretending to be naked as well. Like it's just weird. Yeah. It's just so cringy.
And the Pointer Brothers, never heard of them either. Pointer Sisters, I've heard of. I've
Yeah.
heard of the Pointer Sisters, but if they got the Pointer Sisters, that might have been a better influence. But I mean, who are these people? I mean, what are they going to do? And this just sums up everything that I was saying last week about how Serie A, in order to market the league and build the brand, they just take some general truths. And one of those is that influencers are important for marketing your product. Any business that wants to try and sell their product, they will hire influencers. I don't like it, but it's a general truth. So Serie A thinks, we have to get the influencers to build the product, and they just get a bunch of influencers who no one's heard of, and who have no link to football. If you're trying to if I'm my cake shop, for example, if I'm trying to sell cakes and I want to hire an influencer, right? I don't go and get an influencer that has nothing to do with has no audience to do with food, do I? Because their audience are not gonna be interested in food. So you get an influencer that is connected to, in this case, you would get a footballer influencer like that clown Speed or someone like that. The Pointer Brothers. What are they gonna do? Julia Science West. What is she? What's she? A scientist? I
I
mean,
don't know what that even
what
is.
is like?
I don't even know what that is. Julia Science West. What the hell is that? Like, you just made that name up, didn't you?
It sounds like it. It sounds like one of those Verona players of them in Regen.
It's not Science West. I just looked it up. It's Science West, like
Oh,
Scient
sorry.
West.
Sorry.
Science West.
Sorry for getting the name wrong. I mean, that makes all the difference there.
I don't even know who that is. I think she's Italian. I think so. Anyway, well, I don't know. I think she's Italian American. I just
Verona.
don't know who
We
she
forgot
is.
to say that Verona stayed up, and I think that Marco Baroni deserves to be a Badger of the Week as well.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, no. Baroni for managing to stay up.
And
Is
also for
without a
me,
doubt.
he along with Motta, Coach of the Year for me.
For me as well. I mean, to be able to do what he did, and last year with Lecce as well, he's becoming
Incredible.
quite the Salvezza coach, Baroni.
The final Serie Ass of the week is. Do you want to take this on CBS Sport Galazzo?
It's like they don't even have the rights to the Premier League, and all their Twitter and social media accounts is just about the Premier League. I mean, it makes no sense to me. Like, if you own a product, why are you hyping up NBC's product?
Yeah,
Like, I don't.
it's
Like, I don't get
insanity.
that.
And
I don't
again,
get that.
Serie A, I think they're conquering America, and
Yeah, they
the
are.
rights
Kind
holder
of
in America is only tweeting and posting on social media about on Sunday. This was during a massive day for Serie A. During the Udinese game, there was nothing on that game. And later on, when Inter were getting given the trophy, they were just tweeting about the Premier League final day, non-stop, tweet after tweet after tweet, post after post on the Premier League. And
and apparently the broadcast was like that as well. They barely talked about it. I mean, I don't understand why they didn't show the actual, ceremony and like everything that was going on, because it was probably, that's something people would like to see, I guess. I mean, or at least that would have. It's more in, let me put it to you like this: you own the rights to the Serie A. Like, shouldn't you be promoting your own product that you own the rights to, rather than promoting the product of NBC?
Yeah. No, in terms of their own business, it makes no sense.
I don't get that. I really don't. I understand that they have to acknowledge the Premier League. I get that, and they should. But
yeah, but they plastered their entire social media feed with Premier League stuff.
Meanwhile, there was fireworks at the San Siro. There was
no. Serie A was an afterthought on their own product. Was an afterthought on social media, whereas it was all Premier League, and they don't even have the rights to the Premier League. I mean, it's just. I mean, it's just, I don't know if it's just pure incompetence or if it's just, I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's embarrassing. Okay, on that note, we will leave it for that. We will be back with a Q&A probably on Wednesday.
Tomorrow,
and then we will have something on the Europa League final, either on Wednesday evening or on Thursday.
So, yeah, and also we'll probably do we'll do something also. I mean, if Spalletti's going to release his provisional Azzurri squad on
Yeah,
Thursday.
maybe we'll do a little spin off on that as well.
Yeah, I think we should do that. Yeah.
Okay, right. Let's leave it at that. Until next time. Ciao, ciao.